Okay, here we go. How did you get started in acting and voice acting? How did you become an actor?
Well, actually, I started. I was born with the ability to hear and repeat music and voices and sounds,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Mr. Magoo. And when I was a baby in Goshen, Indiana, where I was born of Amish and Irish heritage, my grandfather was singing like a hymn or a lullaby to me, and I hummed it back to him. And he was so astonished, he brought me downstairs, and I did it for the assembled crowd down there. And as I've said, that's the last time I ever worked for free. Anyway, it just kind of, our entire family that I grew up around were singers, and they harmonized, and they were joke tellers, and they were some very surrealistic, wonderful, funny Midwestern people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was raised in a very nurturing situation where my entertainment skills were encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, both my mom and my dad, who were very beautiful people, physically as well, I mean, very, very pretty to look at, they both could have gone into show business if they wanted to. But in the time that they were being raised, the 30s and 40s,
mm-hmm.
it was, just wasn't considered to be the kind of profession you should go into.
Mm-hmm.
So my father became a lawyer along with his dad, who was a state senator, Robert E. Proctor, in Indiana.
Uh-huh.
And he had a good career as a lawyer, and then later as an entrepreneur, finding funding for people who were making movies. That's how I got to meet Jacques Tati, and how I got to go to Spain and see the filming of The Pride and the Passion, which is a film that my father helped to raise money for. And I met Sophia Loren and Frank Sinatra, Cary Grant. All this is like a teenager. So I was always around the business. But it wasn't until I connected up with my Yale buddy, Peter Bergman, here in Los Angeles, that I started doing voices on the radio, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I met the other members of what became the Firesign Theater,
mm-hmm.
Phil Austin and David Othman at KPFK Listener-Supported Radio. And we found out we were all fire signs. I'm a Leo. There were two Sagittarians and an Aries. And since at the time in the 60s, the New Age kind of astrological identifications were, part of the identification of the youth culture at the time. We called ourselves the Oz Firesign Theater, because we met on a show that Peter was hosting called Radio Free Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I started playing with voices, and I discovered that I had, that this ability that I had was something that was marketable, was commercial. so I made a tape, and I went and I got myself an agent, and I started doing radio spots and television voiceovers, as well as turning out a whole bunch of records on Columbia with the Firesign Theater,
mm-hmm.
3 of which were eventually nominated for Grammys as best comedy recordings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it happened. Like everything else, I've written a book about this, and I don't think I've sent you a copy of it yet, but I will do so. My book is called "Where's My Fortune Cookie?" and it's available on Amazon, and it really tells the story of my life up to now, and
mm-hmm.
how strangely things happened for me, kind of unexplicable connections and psychic events and things that really affected the direction of my life and my career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a long way of saying that I believe that you discover yourself as you continue to live, if you are given an opportunity to express your talents or to find your niche in life, mm-hmm. that which you enjoy doing the most, and then can actually become a way of living for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Good.
Yeah, I started this radio show 4 years ago, and I would have never thought I would have gotten this far, and as time goes on, goes.
What do you call the show?
The Trey Olds Radio Show. My name.
Oh, got it. I thought you were going to call it "Everything Old is New Again."
Thanks for the suggestion.
That's good. And it's a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, you have to send me a link and let me know when I can put it on Facebook and share it with my friends as well.
I will.
So what else can I answer for you?
What is the most difficult part of being a voice actor and actor, if you have a difficult
Okay, that's a very decent question. Now, see, again, I've been in the business since I was 9 years old. That's when I first did live television in New York.
Long time.
Live television. It was a show called Uncle Danny Reads the Funnies. Elliot Gould was another child actor on that show. And we basically would improvise to the cartoons of the day as they were published in the Daily News. So that taught me right from an early age the power of improvisation. Okay, which is a very, very important tool to have if you're going to do voiceover work.
Yeah.
Because you're often given pictures of characters you have to come up with a voice for, and that means you have to have at your beck and call among your skill set the opportunity to say, well, it looks like that guy talked like this, or maybe he talks like that. It's hard to tell. And you try them all out. And somebody says, we like that third voice you did. Well, which one was that? Can you play it back for me? I go, oh yeah, okay, I can do that one again. So I guess the hardest part of voiceovers for me was learning the skills, learning to use my acting skills in just the power of the voice alone. Okay, because I was a classically trained actor. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in theater from Yale University.
Wow.
And I was a singer. I did a lot of musicals and things. That's how I met Peter Bergman originally, because he was also at Yale, and he wrote the lyrics for several musicals that I started. So I came into the acting world in New York with these traditional skills. And one day, my agent, because I spoke Russian, I speak 7 languages now, but at the time I spoke French and I had studied Russian. I'd gone to the Soviet Union with the Yale Russian Chorus, singing all over, street corners in all the major cities and talking to people. And so I had that new skill, and my agent in New York tasked me to do a Russian accent for a documentary about the Second World War and about Hitler in the Second World War. So I go into this studio in New York, and I went into the little booth, and I read my lines. It was all about, I think, the assault on Stalingrad at the time.
Yeah.
And I took about, I'd say maybe 15 minutes, and I walked out, and they gave me my contract, and I made $375. Okay? So I said, this is a business I should pursue, right? But it really wasn't until years later, when Firesign Theater happened, that I was able to use all of the different dialects and voices and characters and languages that I had under my belt. And then I had to commercialize it. And that took a little while. When I signed to a commercial agent to do radio spots and everything, I learned that even though I had these great skills, it was slightly different when you were working for a commercial advertising agency and the like. You couldn't be quite as crazy, couldn't be quite as creative. You really had to give them what they wanted and what they heard in their heads. And that was a transition period where I really felt I felt humble. I felt like I've still got something to learn here. And that took me, a couple of years, but then I had a great success in that medium. And at the time that I was doing all this, which is basically the 70s, 80s, 90s, there was a small group of us who did voiceover work. And we all kind of worked together a lot and knew one another. And when I got into the cartoon industry, the first cartoon I did was the Smurfs for Hanna-Barbera, right?
Yeah.
I was King Gerard on the Smurfs. And I'd go into a room to record with great actors like Jonathan Winters, great comedic improvisational actors. And I'd learn from watching them work, seeing how they created characters with their voices. So I think that the bottom line, Trey, about all of this is that for me, even up to now, and I've been in the business for like 65 years, 50 years with the Firesign Theater. I'm 77 years old now, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we stay young in our profession, and one of the reasons why we love what we do so much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You never stop learning, when you
never stop learning, and it's a challenge as well. You can call it a difficulty if you wanted to, because you can never kind of say like, "Well, I got it now." Everybody knows me. Everybody's going to cast me. All I have to do is the same voice I always do that they like. But no, it's not like that. Every new job is a challenge. You're constantly auditioning for things, and now you're auditioning at home for the most part on your computer and sending an MP3 out to all these agencies, and you don't know who you're competing with anymore.
Yeah.
To be people down in Mississippi who are very talented in doing voices, and so it's not every job is a slam dunk anymore, and that's fun, that's challenging too.
Yeah. And
so what else?
Do you still perform with the Firesign Theater?
Yeah. We lost two of our members, Peter Bergman, about 5 years ago, right? And then Phil Austin about 2 years ago. Both to different forms of cancer, which is, upsetting.
Yeah.
But David Osman and I are still performing. And we just did a show down at the Library of Congress. It was actually a command performance in Washington, D.C., and we did about 30 minutes of original material that was based on some stuff we did called The History of Radio many, many years ago, right? And we updated it so that it included jabs at the Trump administration and other modern references that people loved. And then we showed a home movie of which comes from a double DVD set, by the way, that's available at firesigntheater.com called Everything You Know Is Wrong, the Firesign Theater, the declassified Firesign Theater. And among the things that are on that 7.5 hours of video from Firesign Theater, including the Everything You Know Is Wrong movie, were home movies that we took. And when we were doing our first recording sessions at Columbia Records, and one of the one that we chose to show at the Library of Congress in the Coolidge Theater, which sold out in just under 3 days and was filled with like 500 to 600 diehard fans or tie-dyed fans, if you will.
Wow.
Anyway, we're home movies of the actual recording session in Columbia Studios at Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers, which was the album that the Library of Congress chose to include in its historical recordings collection about 7 years ago, and that's our connection. And now we're waiting anxiously to see if they confirm the purchase of our archives for in their collection, which would be just a wonderful, wonderful fulfillment of the cultural effect, or an acknowledgement of the cultural effect of Firesign Theater.
Wow.
So, anyway, that show proved to be so popular and so easy for us to do that we've got somebody who's interested in touring it, and we may be playing it in Portland, Oregon, and we might get back to the East Coast with it. We'll see what happens. David is 80 years old, but he's still got the chops, and we still love working together and promoting the Firesign, the legend.